Well, I must be getting old because I could have sworn that I reviewed this album already, but then I realized that I pulled the album last week to listen to it and didn't actually get around to reviewing it. I guess I was just too busy, too lazy to get to it. And so I played it again this morning to refresh my memory, and no time like the present. We move on to probably Joe Mean Mr. Mayo's second favorite album of all time. His first favorite being Pet Sounds, of course, but we'll get to that later on because we're doing the Beach Boys album by album, and that'll be coming up soon enough. But I kid there. Joe, if you know him, it's kind of an in joke. Me and Mr. Mayo and the Beach Boys have it's a complicated relationship. It's wrought with drama and controversy, and it's quite a tale there. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we'll get into that some other time. But so we come to the Beach Boys Christmas album, which was released on November 9 of 1964. The album got to number 6 on the charts and has, of course, been a steady seller ever since. A lot of these songs you know and have heard on your radio every Christmas since 1964, no doubt. The album is Brian Wilson's response to a Christmas album for you by Phillies Records or by Phil Spector, depending on which version of that album you got. That came out November 22nd, 1963, and had the unfortunate fate of being released on the same day that President Kennedy was shot, so that hampered that album's sales in the first year out, but it has since also become a Christmas classic, well deserved. The Christmas album, the Spector album, is better than this album in my opinion, but I do like this album. I just have a few, I don't know, concerns or issues with it, I guess we could say. And we'll get into that in a minute. So, yes, I said the album reached number 6 and so forth. So let's get into the song by song, and then we'll get into some of my thoughts of the album. The album, this is stereo copy, and I can just see Bobby Z out there doing the Fred Sanford, having a conniption. I'm coming to join you, Elizabeth. Looking at the mint plus condition of my copy of this record. Whoever had it before me certainly got their use out of it, to say the least. I got this for $1 about 10 years ago, so I can't complain too much. The record is actually in pretty good shape. It's playable. It doesn't have scratches and so forth. But I do definitely need to get an upgrade copy one of these days. And like I said, I have the dreaded stereo copy, unfortunately. But first song on side one is Little Saint Nick, and side one is all originals with the exception of Frosty the Snowman, the last song. But so that was Beach Boys' original Little Saint Nick. That had actually been released as a single before this album came out on December 9th, 1963. And despite the fact that the Spector album didn't do that well because of the Kennedy assassination, this song did okay. It got to number 3, not on the Billboard chart, but on the Billboard special Christmas song chart that they used to have back then. I don't know that they still have that or not. And has been a radio staple at Christmas ever since. The reason I say dreaded stereo, you can see Joe Mean Mr. Mayo, oddly enough, made a video about not this album, but the song Little Saint Nick yesterday, which he bemoans the fact that he got the stereo edition unknowingly, which takes out the jingle bells, the sleigh bells, and the chimes in the song Little Saint Nick on the stereo version. That was only on the mono version, and it's also on a box set that was released in 1998. But if you get the stereo, which is what you're going to find in the record store more or less nowadays, you're going to have it without the jingle bells and the chimes, which kind of takes away from the song. Even though it's still a really good Christmas song, it's an upbeat, nice song. It's basically a reconfiguration of an earlier Beach Boys hit, Little Deuce Coupe, but it's a good one. I give the song a 9 overall. The stereo version without the Christmas effects, the jingle bells, I'm going to bump that down to a 5. but the mono version with all the bells and whistles and Christmas cheer, that one gets a 9 in my book. The second song on here is Man with All the Toys, another Beach Boy original, which gets a lot of radio play. Also around Christmas, probably not as much as Little Saint Nick, but quite a bit. That was released as a 45 from this record, and that song actually went to number 3 on the Christmas charts, but went to number 69 on the overall Billboard chart. So that's that's a good song, but that kind of raises my issue with the album, Man with All the Toys. It's a good song. I like it. I'm going to give it a 7, but it just doesn't. Nice pop song, nice Beach Boys song. It just doesn't seem quite Christmassy enough to me, if that makes sense. And I was thinking about that, and maybe the fact that the Beach Boys were born in California and raised there and spent their, I don't know where they live now, but spent most of their life there, Hawthorne, California, and then Los Angeles or Beverly Hills or wherever they moved when they got famous and rich. But being in California, my grandparents lived in California. They moved from Chicago to California, I think before I was born, but somewhere before 1963 or shortly after. For as long as I can remember, they lived in California. And my aunt and uncle, my mom's brother and his wife, they had moved out there also. So we used to go to California every summer from when I was a little baby up to time I was teenager. It was great and fun in the summertime. You had the ocean, the beach, the bikini girls, go to see the Chinese theater with the movie stars' footprints and handprints and all that neat stuff. Wonderful in the summer. But one time, 1975, we went to California there for Christmas, and so we get there, and it's whatever 80 degrees. My grandmom needed to go to a shopping mall or a store or something we went to, and walking around, and it's sunny and blue skies and palm trees. And then one day, I think it was actually Christmas Eve, I was bored because it was my parents, my aunt and uncle, and my grandparents, so there's nobody my age. My aunt and uncle had a son, but he's like 9 years older than me. He's a good kid, but got bored, went out in the garage, and there was a couple of bicycles, so I grabbed one and just went riding around the neighborhood. And I'm out there, I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and there's mountains back there, there's palm trees, not a cloud in the sky, and I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know about this. And then later that night, Christmas Eve, it's knock comes on the door, and it's a group of people going around the neighborhood caroling, and which is wonderful. They got their singing Silent Night and Santa Claus Come to Town and all that good stuff. They're wearing Santa hats, which should be really festive and holiday spirit filled and Christmassy, but I think it was actually still daylight, for one thing. They're wearing their Santa hats, but then they're wearing t-shirts and shorts, and some of them are wearing Hawaiian shirts, and it's still 70 degrees outside, and I'm thinking, I like seasons. I like winter and fall best of all. I really don't like summer at all, but I like my seasons. And I could live somewhere where it was cool and nice all year round, but I wouldn't want to live somewhere where it's 80 degrees all year round. And so that just didn't feel like Christmas and just wasn't working for me. So, with going off on that tangent, I think maybe, possibly, people that are born and raised in California just don't totally get the whole Christmas thing. I could be wrong, but maybe they don't get the snow and the cool, cold weather, and you got palm trees and people walking around in swimsuits and going to the ocean in December and all that crazy stuff. So maybe the Beach Boys tried their best at Christmas songs, but this wasn't in their DNA. I don't know. I could be totally off base, but that's just a theory. And so with that, Man with All the Toys has the Christmas lyrics, and it's a really good pop song and Beach Boys song. It's, like I said, a 7 I'll give it. It just doesn't feel very Christmassy to me, to be honest. Now, there are certain songs off this album that show up on the radio every year that it's not Christmas until I hear them. Certain other Christmas songs by other singers and bands, too. Little Saint Nick is certainly one of those, and some of the others on here. But for the most part, this is just a nice album with lyrics about Christmas, but it doesn't quite, most of the songs don't quite make it to feeling festively holiday spirit infused to me, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. So the third song is Santa's Beard. That's a good one. I like that. I'm going to give that a 9. It's a kid takes his little brother to see Santa. The little brother wonders if that's the real Santa, pulls his beard, it comes out, pulls the pillow out of his shirt, and says that you're not really Santa. Where's the real Santa? Brian, of course, was the oldest of the 3 sons, so maybe that's based on a true. Maybe he took Carl or Dennis to see Santa, probably not in 1964, but probably years earlier when they were little bitty kids, and so maybe that's where that came from. But the music's good. It's a nice song. I'll give it a 9. Merry Christmas, Baby is that's an original also. It's a good song. It's I'm going to give it a 7. My issue with it is it's a really good song, but it's a little too slow paced and subdued. I wish they would have sped the tempo up a little bit and pumped a little more energy into the song and made it a little more happy holiday festive sounding. I can't fault it for being a good song. It's just a little too subdued for my taste, but 7 I'll give that. Fifth song, Christmas Day. Again, it's very nice. It's the first Beach Boy song to feature a lead vocal by Al Jardine. It I like the music. I like the song. I'm going to give it I'm going to give it a 9 because I like the music. It's another one where it just doesn't seem very Christmassy to me. It seems like a kind of the background music for walking on the beach in the summertime with your girlfriend. Uh, Except in the middle, there's a kind of a weird little waltz organ interlude that comes in, which is nice too. But good song, doesn't feel Christmassy, but I like the song. I like the music. I'm going to give it a 9. We go to the last song on side 1, which is Frosty the Snowman. Good version. They do a solid version of it. I'm going to give it a 7. The reason I don't give it a higher version, even though I really like their version quite a bit, is that everyone and their dog has done this song, and there are quite a few other versions that are substantially more fun or better better done, in my opinion. Just off the top of my head, you got Burl Ives, you've got the Ronettes on the Phil Spector Christmas album, which is probably my favorite version of the song. You've got several people have done this song. Burl Ives in the classic Frosty the Snowman cartoon, of course. But the one thing I do like about this song, and I gave it a 7, I'm going to bump it up actually to an 8.5, because what I do like about the song, even though I like some versions better, is that they managed to mix sort of a modern sounding Frosty the Snowman, modern by 1964 standards, with an older sounding version, sort of like the Burl Ives version, and they kind of come in the middle there. There's a little bit of that uh, old style feel and a little bit of the modern feel, and they do a good job of mixing the two. So 8.5, let's do it with that. Side 2, we get into the, I think these are all cover versions on side 2. Yes. So, and this is the one that's the orchestrated stuff. The band doesn't play anything. They just came in and put their vocals in over the orchestral arrangements. So, first song is We Three Kings of Orient are, or, yeah, We Three Kings of Orient are. Nice version, a little too slowly paced again for my taste. Kind of in the same vein as Merry Christmas Baby. And so I'm going to give that one a 6. It's nice, but it's sort of bland, I guess. Blue Christmas is second song on side 2. That's Brian Wilson solo. Of course, he's singing to the orchestral arrangement. None of the other Beach Boys appear on there. He does a good version, pretty solid. I'll give that an 8. There's some other people that have done that song better, but he does a solid version, and that's another song that quite a few people have done. Third song is Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Um, the Beach Boys version, to me, sounds kind of like one of the old Christmas specials. One of the old, like, well, there's the Santa Claus is Coming to Town Christmas special that comes on every year with, who's singing that? Jimmy Durante? I don't remember. But it sounds sort of like that. And I like it. I'm gonna give it an 8. And the reason that doesn't go higher, that could have been a 10, but that's another one that everybody has done, and there are quite a few people that even do a better version. I'm thinking one of the songs I have to hear every Christmas is Bruce Springsteen's version of that. Love that. The Jackson Five's version. The Crystals version is great. All three of those I would give a 10. The Crystals is from the Phil Spector album. Perry Como, Bing Crosby, Frank Sinatra, they all do versions of it that I'd rate a little higher than the Beach Boys. And before I did this review, I went online and looked the song up because I knew that no telling how many versions of it there are. But I haven't heard yet, but I saw that Justin Bieber has done a version of that, one of Bobby Z's favorites, and I'm sure that's got to be the ultimate, the classic, the end all to end all versions. And as soon as I finish this, I'm going right over to YouTube to listen to it because I'm sure that's going to be on a scale of 1 to 10 and 11. But the Beach Boys, I'm going to give theirs an 8. It's a good one. White Christmas follows, and then after that, I'll Be Home for Christmas. Again, very nice versions. I'm going to give both of those 6, I guess. That's strange thing about those with the orchestral music behind them. It sounds more like the Christmas music my parents would have listened to than the Christmas music that teenage kids back in 1964 would have been listening to. But they're nice. They're nice. We'll give them what I say, a 6 or a 7 or somewhere in between there. And it ends with Auld Lang Syne, the classic New Year's song, which is done okay. I give that a 6. Overall, like I said, there are some songs on here that just are on my Christmas must-hear list every year. But a lot of this, you know, it just doesn't. There's other Christmas albums that get me in the Christmas spirit and the Christmas mood a lot more than this one. I do like the album though. I'm going to give it an overall 7.5 for the mono version, which I don't have and need to get. For the stereo version, I'm going to knock that down to a 5, just because of the lack of certain attributes to the song Little Saint Nick. But so that wraps up 1964 for the Beach Boys, and we'll be moving into 1965 and their next album up in the next version, next episode of Rating the Beach Boys. Hope everyone's doing well, and we will see you soon.